Hi, everybody. I am Wendy Nystrom, your host with Environmental Social Justice, and with my co-host, Joel Vendette. And today we brought back BioLargo. Last week, we talked to Tonya Chandler. Tonya is the Director of Commercialization, Strategic Marketing, and Business Development. Today, we have Dennis Calvert. Dennis is the CEO and President of BioLargo. So welcome, both of you.
Hey, thanks, Wendy. Great to be here.
No problem. So Tonya, when you were here last time, we talked about how bad PFAS is and that it builds up in your system. We've known about it for decades. But what can we expect now with Dennis coming into the play? What can we expect moving forward?
Regulations. You know, for a long time, we didn't have a lot of regulations around PFAS. You saw a few actions here or there that were done, but they really hadn't started to regulate. But in the last, I'll say, 5 years, the focus has really started this regulatory framework. The EPA passed the PFAS action plan.
Yep.
In 2021. They gave us a roadmap of what they wanted to do. So, and they sent something to Congress, and they passed something in Congress, and they sent it to the Senate, and it stayed there. So the EPA decided that they really needed to move things forward and focus on their own. So their strategic roadmap has really given the direction that they're going, and it's regulating this on every front. It's regulating it in the water, in the air, through all of our manufacturing, through our solid waste divisions, our wastewater. There's regulations that are focusing on all of these that are coming, slowly being rolled out over time. Now, having said that, everybody's like, well, will they really go through it? There's too much focus on this from so many angles for it not to go through. So what's coming right now is they've on the manufacturing front, they've been focusing on getting rid of some of the PFAS in the industry, but also then not allowing discontinued ones to come back. So a lot of times somebody will stop using a chemical for a while, and then they'll wait a couple of years, and then they'll bring it back. Well, now they're closing that loophole, and they're saying on these discontinued PFAS, if you want to reuse them again, you have to go through a whole new study. So that came through in January. They are expecting the safe drinking water numbers to come out in March for the preliminary numbers. We're expecting, although they set the HALs very low, the health advisory limits, they're expecting the safe drinking water numbers to come out around 3 to 4 parts per trillion. Because they need to be measurable and they need to be economically feasible. We're expecting the final CERCLA rule that, as we talked about last time, will regulate and ricochet through the industry.
Yes,
they're expecting that in August. They're expecting some leachate rules for the solid waste industry. That was just in the last Plan 15 that the EPA released. So we're expecting those in the near future, and also to have it in the NPDES, which is the discharge permits for wastewater. So we're going to see rules there, and they're starting to talk about biosolids, and you're starting to see the FDA and the USDA put regulations into their frameworks. So all of this stuff is actually coming, but some of it's coming because of lawsuits. There's been, since I think 2005, there's been over 6,400 lawsuits filed, class action suits filed for PFAS, according to Bloomberg. And just since December, there's been about 12 class action lawsuits filed that are people saying the organic industry thing, people like Burt's Bees, where they had all natural listed on their labeling. And people have said, no, it's not all natural. You have PFAS in it. So Coca-Cola has been hit with that through their Simply Orange.
What did you say, Dennis?
Yeah.
Say the food industry is just now getting their head around all this.
Yeah, they're just starting to come into all of this with
and the
Capri Sun got hit.
And the same thing. Yep. They're still just now starting to wrestle with it. And we noticed just a couple of weeks ago that Europe had a big initiative to ban all use of PFAS products. And so that creates a whole turnover in the supply chain. Just think about that. You know, they've been using these things for 30 and 40 years, and they've got to replace them with something. Or patterns of behavior for humans have to change, right? Like we talked, the easy one is nonstick coatings. Maybe we need a skillet where the egg kind of sticks to the iron. I don't know, but right. So maybe there's an adjustment required, but it's become such an ingrained tool in making products flow and not stick, and you know, things that come together, you know, and adhesives and all that. So there's a lot of change coming.
And I don't think people realize when we say that PFAS is in everything, PFAS is literally in everything. And it's been produced since, I believe Tonya said 1937 was when it first came out. Yep. The tests where we found out this is not really great for us, actually quite harmful, between 1956 and 1965. Yeah. So we've known about the dangers for a while. The fact that it builds up in your bloodstream. So guys, it doesn't break down. It just continues to get more and more and more.
Well,
it
was made to withstand nature's degradation. That's what people don't understand. It was designed to not break down. Like nature did it, right? Yeah.
We did a great job.
Yeah. It turns out a little bitty bit over a very long period of time that accumulates is really problematic. Really problematic. Which of course makes sense when you think about it that way. Yeah, go ahead, Joel.
The part that scares me is like going back to what Tonya said, is like, you know, a chemical will be used or something's used and then it goes away and then it comes back. Kind of like, you know, when they reboot a movie's franchise that nobody really wanted brought back, it's almost kind of like that thing. It's like, just let it go. We had our time with it. Let's move on from this product.
It's funny, when we started BioLargo, I agree 100%. And the founder, our original founder, we've got a bunch of inventors now, right? But 𝐸𝐿, who's a chemist. And I remember when we started, this is over 15 years ago, he said, just remember one thing, don't mess with Mother Nature.
Yeah.
Right? Don't mess with Mother Nature, because you're going to be punished. And that's what's going on with PFAS. They're trying to mess with Mother Nature. It's not anything that lasts forever is not good.
What do you mean? What do you mean?
Well, there's a natural cycle, right?
So, I mean, if we went back to, let's be realistic, everybody knows that, like, so we're just talking about like cooking stuff really quick. Like cast iron skillets are probably one of the best things. Everybody loves them. Is that one of the best things that a person can use in their kitchen, would be just like normal cast iron cookware? Or does that have it in as well?
Well, they're high maintenance. You got to keep them clean.
Yeah, well, no, alternatives. Well, there's a bunch of alternatives. I think it starts with, let's just start with no PFAS in your stuff. I mean, just be careful, right? Be aware. Be aware. And there are other coatings that are non-PFAS related, so it's hard to comment on all of them. But so you hate to say any nonstick coatings are bad. I'm not sure that's true, right? Okay. But the ones that are made with some PFAS compounds, you know, as they accumulate and the material comes off, you know, the other thing that people don't realize is it migrates with the water.
Yeah.
You know, so it's here one day and it's moved another, and then it's concentrated and then continues to move around. And that brings up a whole series of things that, you know, really impact the way you're going to deal with it. Yeah. Because the industry, the first start, of course, is stop the source. Yeah, but what about the stuff that's accumulated for 20 years and still floating around in the water table? I mean, that's a whole nother problem. So there's all kinds of technical things in the development cycle. You know, we looked at this and said, you know, what we should do is just figure out how to get it out first and do it really well.
That's what y'all are doing.
Yeah. And then over time, figure out how to either destroy it or modify it or whatever the government says is okay, right? That's the way we think about it.
I wanted to circle back with Tonya talking about these new regulations coming, because I don't think people realize if PFAS is in everything, let that sink in. But we have cleanup requirements that are going to require the cleanup of anything containing PFAS. Anything considered a hazardous material or hazmat is a very expensive cleanup process, transportation process, disposal process. We're going to see costs skyrocket.
Oh, absolutely. So just take right now, if you look at EPA guidances and, you know, traditional treatments that are used for removing PFAS from, say, your drinking water. So those are typically activated carbon or ion exchange columns. Large versions sometimes of what you see, you know, people will get a one under their sink. But what happens is that as the regulations change, just take CERCLA and you add it to a hazardous constituents list. Now it's been identified as a hazardous waste. Now the disposal on that, column for 1 million gallons of water, you're talking 80,000 pounds of carbon. Now the disposal of that goes from $1 a pound to $10 a pound. Well, people are not just going to eat that in the costs of the municipality. They have to transfer that to their users.
The ratepayers.
So the ratepayers have to pay that.
Right.
And so your costs go up tenfold on just this one treatment. Now go to the backside of the plant, and we can't take it out. We can't put it into our stream discharge on our wastewater, or we can't put it into the ocean anymore without treating it. So now we have to add another treatment there.
Yeah.
So that's more money to the ratepayer. I mean, and that's just one example.
Yeah. So right here in our backyard, the great example is Orange County Water District, which is a district of districts, right? And so they represent a number of cities, and they estimated their cost to treat it for, I think, about 60 wells, approximately, at about $1.5 billion to treat. That's just in Orange County. It's just right down the street, right? So you think about that. Now, what they did is they actually took a class action themselves and are suing the polluters to try and get some relief. But ultimately, it's going to transfer to a ratepayer increase. Mm-hmm. And the industry's been begging for a way to increase the, quote, value and cost of water, because if you think about water globally, it's a precious resource, right?
Yeah.
People think of it as an entitlement, but that's fine, but there's a cost to treat, there's a cost to move, there's a cost to heat, there's a cost to store, and the cost has to be borne somewhere, right? So that's why it's a municipal asset, because it's for the good of the people. But what they've become smarter and smarter at doing is properly allocating abusers, overusers, teaching people how to be better water conservationists. I mean, they're really good at it. Yeah, which is all good, right? That's all good for the world. But at the end of the day, they can't just eat the cost. Somehow it has to get taken care of. Now, the feds are doing a lot too. To give everybody credit, nobody's sticking their head in the sand here. I think at the political level, people are pretty aware. So the federal government is putting a lot of subsidy dollars into water conservation, water reuse, and PFAS mitigation. I can't remember the number. I want to say $3 billion or something. Tonya probably knows.
$2 billion was just allocated out of one fund, but it's written into multiple different bills that are actually. So there was dollars written into this last infrastructure bill. Yeah. It's been written into the budgets for the military spending to clean up the bases. Yeah. Because a lot of the sites that you're seeing, the impact started with a military base, or the impact started with a bad airline fire, or or the industry put it. It's not all just on where were they making these?
Yeah.
It's going to be coming from our landfills. It's going to be coming from, which is why you're going to see the leachate regulations.
Oh yeah.
Because we've been putting this stuff in landfills for 60 years.
Yeah, and when you mentioned fire suppression, I didn't realize that the fire suppression foam had PFAS in it.
A lot.
So yes, it's all foam. All the foam is
ordinarily
a combination. Yeah, it's basically a combination of taking. Remember last week when we talked about the PFOA being called C8? Mm-hmm. They took C8 and then they took the active ingredient in Scotchgard, and they put them together and they created AFFF.
Oh, fabulous.
Okay, so bear with me, but I have a question for you. And this may sound dumb, but I think it's a fair one, because if I have it, somebody else may have it as well. If PFAS is in everything, what do you use to clean up PFAS?
I think, well, honestly, let's make sure we're clear. Rhetorically, it's everything, but it's not actually everything. So I think
I'm just saying, if I've got the question, somebody else has it too.
I know. I mean, it's a soundbite, but it permeates the world, no question. And and everywhere you look, there's something with PFAS in it. So, but it's not everything, and that's important, because you don't want to create alarm where there's no, there shouldn't be an alarm. But
I'm still alarmed about the broccoli cake.
Well, it's in the polar ice caps, and they're testing mother's breast milk for it. So it's in cosmetics. I mean, and it's in pesticides. I mean, yeah, it's a lot of places, and it's stuff that is part of maintaining our lifestyle, our lifestyle of having no weeds to grow crops. Okay, there's a price you pay, right?
Yeah.
So, yeah. Anyway, but the question you raised, I think, is a good one. Now, our company has a bunch of scientists and engineers, and we're focused on big problems that can impact the world for good. I mean, that's what we do. And it's easy to say, it's really hard to do. Okay. And it starts, I think, with it's really hard to do. It's taken us a long time to find success, but we are, and this is one of them. The PFAS project, as we call it, is a big deal. So it starts with knowledge. And so our team are experts in the remediation and or removal and or destruction of toxins, toxic stuff. And they've been doing it for 30 years. And so what happened is, when we looked at it, we said, first, let's be the most excellent extractor and collector and do it in the most efficient, economical, as well as environmental impact way. And so that's our thesis. Where that's our shining spot in the PFAS world, is we can save people a lot of money and we can get it out in a really most excellent way. So we've achieved even non-detect status in our test results. Non-detect scientifically means beyond the level at which testing can detect, right? So for a layman, we got it all out. For a scientist, below the level of detection. So then our thesis was, until the government makes a decision about what they're going to do on destruction, anybody that's in the developed destruction technique business is out hanging on a limb. They're on the cliff and they're waiting for someone to tell them it's okay. And that's a very dangerous place to be an innovator in. And we've done it, and we know, because you're betting the farm that you're going to bet right, and the regulators are going to control your destiny, right? So they become lobbyists. They do all sorts of things to influence the decision of the regulators. When we looked at that problem, our engineers came to us and said, "Look, I've been doing this for 30 years. Listen." I go, "Knock, knock, knock. Dennis, listen." I go, "Okay." Listen. I mean, really, I swear it's like that. And I go, "I'm listening. Do whatever you do, don't do that," because we've been there, done that for over 30 years. And here's what happens: you're going to watch companies that are going to go bankrupt because they're not going to be able to get their destruction techniques seeded in the market, and the adoption cycle is going to kill them. And if you're dying, you're not helping. You can't die. You got to stay alive as a company.
So when this stuff actually is removed and we get to the point and you're doing the extraction, how does it get stored to prevent it from the leaching or anything like that? Because the fact is, we thought years ago a lot of stuff got stored, we would never have issues with it, and we do. So how do you predict? I mean, you can't. Nobody has a crystal ball.
There's a whole bunch of great techniques for that, actually, and even the destruction is pretty simple at the highest level. You're either going to use pressure or heat. Pressure or heat. You're going to cook it, or you're going to electrolyze it, or you're going to pressurize it, and you're going to essentially degrade. You're going to create degradation that nature can't do by itself. You're going to accelerate it with those techniques that the industry can use. There's also people that are working on enzymatic treatments, right, where they put in enzymes and bugs that can potentially eat PFAS. I've even heard people say, "Oh, we'll put it down in the water. We'll put it down in the water table," right? In other words, feed the. And I'm thinking, I'm not sure the government's going to like that one. Sounds good, because there's so much going on you don't know, right? What's it going to interact with down under the Earth's crust? You don't know. So lots of complicated things. But when you talk about storage, the trick is, if you can get it so isolated at such a compact level, then you can store a lot in a very small, compact place. And then you do traditional storage techniques, right? Canisters and lining and security, and you do things until and here's the thing: it's not like the destruction techniques are going to be years and years and years away. It's just that the ones that are available today, or the ones that are emerging, haven't gone through the gauntlet of testing to be validated as safe yet. So some
they have to be economically viable.
Well, that's the other thing. All this stuff costs a lot of money. I mean, you talk about a pressure vape, and we've looked at some of this, and we're gonna be involved in some of that destruction. So we're looking down the road, saying, yeah, that's part of our future. But before we spend a cent, because it's all conjecture about what the government is going to say is okay, we're going to watch to make sure that we head in the right direction, so that we don't create something that's expensive that we can't sell. Right?
which makes complete sense. So
I think so. Yeah.
I would hope so. I mean, you kind of want to survive as a business. That's what businesses want to do.
You don't have unlimited funds, that's for sure. Now, the good, I will say again, just to give some of the government credit, they're not sticking their head in the sand. They sponsor research dollars. They've done SBA grants. We got one. The EPA came out with EPA-sponsored grants, and the question that raises is that methodology the way to sponsor research for mission-critical technical development to keep people safe from cancer-causing or cancer-linked and birth defect-linked stuff, because it's so slow. And we, as our company, what we've done, I had a leader at the EPA say to me when we started the company, we're going to innovate in the water space. And she says, well, whatever you do, I hope you have something else that's going to make money, because it's really hard. Just think about that, right? So people talk about innovating in the water industry. And, these adoption cycles are 10 and 15 and 20 years. I mean, who can do it? Who can survive that long, right? Well, we've survived a long time to be able to now watch the fruit bear out of the seeds that we planted. But we actually took an additional step, and we went and of course, we have Canadian business partners and staff members, team members, but we actually created a Canadian company and began leaning on the Canadian federal government. And so that's a whole innovation cycle conversation, but it worked. And what we were able to do is recruit extraordinarily talented people out of the University of Alberta. We got an incubator site on campus. We received over 100 grants from the federal Canadian government because they love the environment. I mean, they are so focused on keeping they do.
Yeah.
And so again, we worked around the U.S. system to find resources to raise our profile, get us the talent, get us the financial resources. It's been incredible. And so again, just think about that. Most people can't do that. Well, yeah, go up to Canada and set up a company, and they're like, what? How are we going to do that? Anyway.
So as the federal government is becoming more and more alarmed, or not necessarily alarmed, but getting involved with the whole PFAS and getting all these things scared, do you find, we all know bureaucracy can suck, we'll put it mildly, and that's the polite way to put it.
Yeah.
Shocking.
Well, sure. I mean,
do you think it's getting...
Think about the reward systems. Think about the reward systems, even at the municipal level. What happens is, for us anyway, there's a certain amount of sort of philosophical hindsight 2020, and also the vivid awareness of the things that stand in your way, right? The obstacles. Because being an innovator means overcoming the hurdles.
Right.
There's 1,000 of them. The pitfalls are endless. And so when you think, especially in the water business, where you're talking about mission critical drinking water,
right,
the people that manage that are public servants. Okay, they can't afford to take risk. I mean, they're afraid. They don't want to do wrong. They want to get it right. They do care. Okay, and as a result, for example, what tends to happen is they'll lean on incumbent technologies that have already been proven, even if they're not sufficient, because that's all they know. That's all they know. And the engineers that they're giving them counsel are saying, well, we know this will work. Yeah, we know it's expensive, but, and again, what it's really doing is saying the innovation cycle to work in a municipal environment is extraordinarily difficult, because they will not take the risk of innovative technologies without ample proof. And ample proof is not just a lab study. You're talking about full-scale implementation at multiple levels, sometimes as much as 20 and 50 pilots. Well, who can afford that?
No.
So it really points to a systemic problem in the innovation cycle to go out into the world and make a difference in some of these things that touch everyday population. And it starts with funding. Somebody's got to step up and say, I want to see the innovation cycle shorten. I want to get the brightest minds possible, and it means making money available. Right?
Well, I think that was the part that I was trying to get to, was that, like, the cutting through the red tape in order to speed things up. That's got to be one of the biggest challenges that you face. I mean,
it's impossible.
Exactly. I mean, and it's like you're saying, everybody's afraid of something that's not been tried, that's not been tested and tested and tested and proven and proven and proven and proven. But at some point in time, you hit this point where you're like, oh dear God, we just have to do this.
We have an emergency going on.
Yeah.
Well, so
nobody wants to be number.
Yeah.
Exactly. And that's the great point right there. That's a great point.
So I think it points to sort of corporate strategy, business strategy, right? Because That's what we do all day. We strategize about how we're going to break through all those barriers, how we're going to get attention, how do we get the money, where can we find our test spot? Is it going to be sufficient? Can we get adoption with these things in place? I mean, that's what we do every day, right? And so there's well-known techniques, and in water business in particular, there's a hierarchy. And what generally happens is you start with industry as opposed to municipal, and you work your way towards municipal because the industry will usually adopt faster. Just think about the bureaucracy of a corporation. You know, it's a handful of executives. It's maybe a board. They've got capital budgets. They're doing their work. They can't afford the negative press. They're going to move faster.
Do you find that there are certain industries that are more open to working with getting rid of this faster than others?
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. Oh, yeah. So, because what happens is, so just think about that. Anybody that's touching a sensitive spot and can't afford the negative press that might come with the notion that they're exceeding testing limits for the things that they deliver to a consumer, it's instant. I mean, they're like, whoa. And it trails down to insurance. They're not going to stick their head in the sand and say, I'll wait for the regulations to be pinned down, whether it's 8 parts per trillion or 2. They're like, dude, get the stuff out of here.
Yeah.
And so they move. Now, the problem is they don't know how to move.
Right.
They say, well, what am I supposed to do? And which is why Tonya has become such a critical expert in the field, because that's what we do. We say, well, okay, let me show you. I mean, there's a whole bunch of options. We can talk about all the technologies, not just ours. Choices that you have to make, but you have to understand where it is and where it's going. If you can't predict 6 months and a year out, you're going to make a decision that's going to cost you double or triple.
Yeah.
And then when you start showing all the different, I'm sorry, go ahead, Wendy, sorry.
Yeah, and you saw that just in the, let's go back to the nonstick pans.
Yeah.
You had pans that came out and said PFOA, PFOS free. But they used Gen X. And now Gen X is being regulated.
Added to the list.
Because that was the replacement for PFOA.
Yeah.
Oh.
I think you're going to see.
So then they had to change again.
I mean, you already see products in the grocery store that say no PFAS, no PFAS.
Yeah.
PFAS free, right? I think it's going to land in restaurants by the time you're done. I mean, you watch. It's going to be in restaurant. People are going to talk about organics and, oh, no PFAS in ours. We've tested. So again, awareness. And if you're in the business of selling something to a consumer and you're selling something that hurts them, I mean, that's just not going to work. Right. So they'll move fast. Yeah. They're going to move. They are moving faster. We're watching it. But here's the thing: they're moving fast, but they don't know what to do.
Yeah.
What to do.
That's most people don't.
Education is so critical to get the story out about what it really is and what your choices are. You know, I was going to say too. The other thing is, you know, even when we're doing the collection technique, there's so much that goes on into a site. When you go into a site that's contaminated, just think about it for a minute. Engineer, I'm not an engineer. Okay, where's it from? How did it get here? Is it getting re-polluted? If we take it out, is it going to I mean, in some of these situations, the minute you take it out, the next day it's full again.
No.
Right? And we've actually seen sites where the continual pollution is so significant that it's going to be 40 years before you clean it up. So there's a whole series of things, and part of it is water flow, the way water migrates. And we actually sponsored a 7th grader out on the East Coast that did a science experiment and showed that the water was migrating as much as 40 miles to the ocean. And people showing up at the ocean, of course.
Well, yeah, when we were talking to Tonya last time, I mean, the river waters, the lakes, the streams all have PFAS, the fish, everything. It's in because the fish are ingesting the water and the food and the algae and the seaweed. So yeah, it is something there. And before, because we were running into our half-hour mark. So Dennis, BioLargo is doing a lot in this field. You guys actually kind of have a methodology that most people haven't discovered yet.
Well, we say we have these sort of cornerstone things that are going on that are really big. They're significant, and PFAS is certainly one of them. We have a number that we think are move the needle initiatives that can impact the world for good, which is our thesis, right? Our slogan is "We make life better."
Yes, you do.
Yeah, we're working hard at it. Everybody says, "Well, once in a while I get criticism. They'll say, well, how about an ambitious goal?" I'm like, well, that's pretty ambitious, but you do it a little bit every day, right? It's a little step of the way.
Every little bit.
Yeah, so PFAS is a big deal. We've got a national distribution network now set up. We're one of the leading educators, we believe. We're getting a lot of demand for that, mostly because of Tonya's work, because we want to educate, help the clients help themselves. If you understand, maybe you make better choices, and we think we're one of those better choices. It doesn't mean we're perfect for everyone. So the idea is to help them make a wise choice and then understand our value proposition so they can be part of the mix. And if we get that chance, then we think we're going to win most of the times. Now, the other thing is that we as a company, we focus on partners because, how does a small company impact the world? Well, you do it with partners. Because if you have to build all that infrastructure, you can't get there fast enough. And we need to move quicker. So one of our partners is 𝐏𝐅𝐀𝐒. That's one of the largest privately held water companies in North America. And we started a partnership there about 3 years ago. And we have a product that we jointly developed we're about to launch with first sale. So it's in process. And it's a little late, but really significant. And already, because of that relationship, that national company has taken up our PFAS solution. It goes, we got customers with PFAS. I mean, they're worried. And we're like, hello, we're here. So yeah, it's a great, we always say you can't fly by at 30 Mach 2 and figure out BioLargo. You got to peel the onion just a bit. But the people who do love the company. And of course, we're 15 years in and we're just getting started. And it's a great time in our evolution, and the future's particularly bright. So
you guys are doing great things. Absolutely. I mean, without a doubt. I Googled you guys. I looked at everything you do.
We're proud of it. It took so long and so much money. And I say that because, we say we're going to create an invention that's going to clean up PFAS globally. And people look at you like, well, were you out of your mind? And, I sit right there and I think, well, somebody's got to do this. Yeah. And we happen to have the unique talent set of people and passion and drive and staying power and stubbornness, a little bit of delusional thinking that allows you to go out and impact the world. But the strategy's right, which is to innovate, find that sweet spot, focus on sustainable solutions, and then find the partner to get international distribution. That's the trick to really going big, is to find those partners. Easier said than done, but we are doing it. And so I think PFAS will end up in the partnerships of global acclaim, and we're going to do great.
So, without a doubt. You're going to see a little nose right there. Mr. Chance does not like the ding that he just heard. So he has decided he's going to crawl into my lap, and being a gigantic dog, I can't do much to stop him. So, so you're going to see a little head pop up here and there. But no, thank you guys so much for all of this knowledge and information you guys have given. PFAS is a very important topic. The fact that BioLargo is one of the leaders, if not the only leader, in removing this from our water systems, from our contaminants, from our waste streams, everything. It's good work that you're doing, and I cannot wait to see them.
Well, our thesis, I want to say, our thesis is always technically number one, but we're not number one in the market. There's a lot of competition. So True. Number one technically, we believe, and actually all the innovations we do, our thesis is if we don't think it's going to be number one, don't do it. Number one technically. Now you got to still find the market. You got to get it out there. So that's where we're at as a company in that process of getting it out there. And and again, Wendy, I want to compliment you and Joel. What you're doing is important too. You're educating, helping people understand. So really important.
Thank you. No, that's really kind of you to say. We work pretty hard at trying to make this easy to understand so everyone knows what we're talking about. Too many of us scientists and engineers, we talk in our own language, and if we're going to get everybody to understand and engage, we got to keep it simple.
Right on. Keep up the great work. Yeah, we'll see you again, hopefully, right? As we achieve some more success, we'll come back and brag about it.
Absolutely. I want you guys back all the time with every milestone, because so many people are worried about PFAS and what's happening and the buildup in our own systems, in our biology. Right. That's scaring people, and rightfully so.
Well, it's scary because you don't know, and then you don't know what to do. I mean, it's like, oh my gosh, it's going on and it's everywhere. And now what? Oh my goodness, it is scary. So I get it. And so we're going to do our part, and you guys will do your part, and it'll get better.
And we'll keep this communication going. So on that, guys, thank you so much. We have Tonya, Dennis from BioLargo. I'm Wendy Nystrom, your host with Environmental Social Justice, with my lovely co-host, Joel Vendette. Thank you guys so much. We will catch you next time. See you later.
Awesome.